everyone. I'd like to call the August 13, 2018 Village Board meeting to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Trustee McClafferty? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Then we get a roll call, please.
Okay, this evening, we will be starting with Trustee McClafferty.
Here.
Snagowski.
Here.
Stapleton.
Here.
Blatzer.
Here.
Kwasniewski.
Here.
Maher.
Okay, great. Next up is the consent agenda, which consists of the following. First off, the approval of minutes for the June 18th Committee of the Whole, the June 16th Committee of the Whole, and the July 23rd Village Board meeting. In addition, we need approval of disbursements. Need a resolution amending resolution number R-31-18, a resolution authorizing the release of the letter of credit for Ashbury Woods 3rd subdivision. We also need a resolution amending resolution R-32-18, a resolution authorizing a reduction of letter of credit for the estates of Montefiore subdivision. We also need a resolution authorizing the reduction of letter of credit for the Derby Pines subdivision, resolution authorizing the reduction letter of credit for the Equestrian Meadows subdivision, and a resolution authorizing award of contract for Freehoff and Kipatah Basin sediment removal. In addition, a resolution approving a change order number 1 for the Freehoff and Kipatah Basin sediment removal. We have a lot of things on the agenda there, so I need a motion to approve that consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Blatzer, seconded by Trustee Kwasniewski. Any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? Okay, roll call, please.
McClafferty.
Yes.
Snagowski.
Yes.
Stapleton.
Yes.
Blatzer.
Yes.
Kwasniewski.
Yes.
Maher.
Okay, motion approved. Okay, moving on to the mayor's report. We're going to kick it off with the public hearing for the proposed transit-oriented development TOD TIF. Need a motion to open the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Maher, seconded by Trustee Snagowski. To start off with, Kathy Orr, do you want to kick things off for us, please?
Yes. Good evening. How are
Good
you?
evening.
We want to start off in talking about the public hearing on the TIF to remind you of all the steps that this village has gone through to be as informative as possible on the creation of this proposed transit or
Hey, Kathy, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you want to go to the mic
Oh.
for us? We're going to make this official,
I'm
please.
so noisy. I
No,
can't believe I need to-
We got you. We got you.
Just hard to pick up for people at home.
So,
You're on live TV, so they want to hear you back home.
There you go. This whole process actually began in March, and in March, the village board authorized a study to determine the eligibility of the area and also to develop a plan for the area. The legal description was developed and the process began. Forms and copies and drafts of the plan were submitted not only to the village board but also to the village staff. The number of notices that go out to do it to all of your citizens blows your mind. You had to, first of all, set up an interested parties registry and publish that if anybody anywhere was interested in the TIF that you were thinking about, they can come in and register with their village clerk. We also sent notices out to anyone within 750, any resident within 750 feet of the boundaries. And that's to let people know who are outside the TIF that the village board is considering this redevelopment plan. You send certified copies then of the redevelopment plan to anybody that owns property in the plan. This public hearing was actually published twice. So there's been an absolute overt effort to involve as many people as possible and to get the information out to as many people as possible. Now I'm going to turn it over to Robert Richlicki of Kane McKenna to go through at two aspects. A, why this area is eligible to be considered a redevelopment project area under the TIF Act, and B, what is the plan for this, and then we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Thanks, Bob.
members of the Board of Trustees, citizens. Bob Richlicki with King McKinnon. We assisted staff as it related to the plan that was put together for the TIF area. And we're going to cover briefly 4 areas, a little bit about the project and plan, kind of a primer on TIF, how it works, and how we qualify to the area, and some of the key elements of the plan. I just want to point out that the TIF plan is part of your larger entitlement process. I mean, the village has put together a comprehensive plan, different downtown plans, as well as your zoning and permitting processes. These move forward as normal. The TIF plan is primarily a financing plan that allows for revenues to be, as they are generated, to be put within the TIF fund and used for redevelopment purposes. The area in question basically runs east and west from about Fremont to right west of the VFW post, and then goes up a little, takes a little part north of near Canal, and then down to Illinois to frontage properties on both sides of Illinois. So under the statute, the TIF plan does comply with the requirements of the TIF Act. It's over 1.5 acres, obviously. We have a but-for requirement in terms of the village recognition that TIF is needed to help spur redevelopment and continue some of the work that you all have done in the past years with the other, the downtown TIF plan, and the area qualifies as a conservation area. Just want to point out the way the TIF mechanism works. It's not a new tax. It's not like a special service area or a special assessment. Taxes in the TIF are paid the same as taxes outside of the TIF. Property is uniformly assessed by the county assessor's office. Again, whether you're in the TIF or outside of the TIF. The only differential is as value increases in this blue line, any increase between the base, which is the red line, and the base is certified by the Cook County Clerk's Office, any differential accrues to the benefit of the TIF fund. And as you know from the operation of the other TIF districts, you can only spend that money within the TIF and within for certain eligible costs that are set up under the TIF Act. The way that area that we saw was qualified was based upon a conservation area. And the key finding for, or threshold for conservation area is that 50% or more of the buildings are 35 years old or greater. In this case, again, based on permit data, other data that we got from the Cook County Assessor's Office, 92% of the buildings were over 35 years old. So again, we passed that first hurdle under the TIF. And there's 13 factors set up. We have to meet a minimum of 3. In this case, we identified 7. And those are lagging or declining equalized assessed valuation. That was for the last 3 out of 5 years. Deterioration was present primarily for site improvements, driveways, lots, etc., but also in some buildings it was noted. Obsolescence, and again, obsolescence is a factor you're going to see when that many buildings are not only over 35 years old, but many over 75 years old, some 100 years old. Again, there's outmoded characteristics in some of the buildings. Lack of community planning does not have to do with your planning efforts to date, but it's primarily when the properties were developed. They were developed before the village's comprehensive plans that were adopted in the 70s and 80s, and before your updates. This has to do more with piecemeal development and when properties originally were built or developed. Excessive vacancies we found, and again, there was a sprinkle throughout the area in terms of both commercial and mainly commercial properties. Inadequate utilities related to the age of some of the systems, sewer and water, as well as the need for comprehensive detention. And last but not least, excessive land coverage. And again, this is not an unusual factor. Again, when many of these buildings were built, there were 0 setbacks, especially for some of the properties along Main Street. 0 setbacks, little consideration for parking or buffering that was done. Again, is primarily due to when a lot of this area was developed. But again, there's 3 factors are needed. We identified 7, so the village is comfortably within the zone as it relates to the conservation area and its qualification. The expected base, and this would be certified by the Cook County Clerk's Office, once the ordinances are filed by the village, is $7,630,778. That would be that red line we saw on that other chart. You know, this is the value that all the taxing districts, including the village, are able to extend their levy on. Anything over that is between the blue line and the red line on that one chart, which accrues to the benefit of the TIF. It is anticipated that there would be growth in the TIF, and again, these are based on current or market assessment estimates. There's certain assumptions built in, but again, there's a possibility, potential for growth within the area for redevelopment, which would increase the EAV, and it's again, it's just an estimate by $27 to $30 million. The budget is a grand total of $25 million, and again, this is over a 23-year period. It's oversized. It's done that way on purpose in order to allow for, again, the time period of the TIF as it's extended to allow for these fundings. This is just the budget. The board would approve any expenditure within the TIF as you do now, but again, it's an upside or ceiling that the other taxing districts have the opportunity in which to see what the village would spend its money on potentially within the TIF district. So, you know, Kathy Orr identified some of the key elements. In addition to the notices, in this room we met with the Joint Review Board, which is your brother and sister taxing districts. They gave a unanimous recommendation to the village for the village board to proceed. That occurred on July 11th. And again, they were presented many of the same materials that have been on your website. We fielded questions as it related to the use of the TIF monies and the characteristics of the area, and again, they provided their advisory recommendation to the village at that time. Today, no action would be taken. Primarily, the public hearing is to get comments from the public or any of the other trustees as it relates to this plan, and the earliest you could take action as it relates to designation would be, you have to wait 14 days, but no more than 90 days after the close of the hearing. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob, appreciate it. And again, we've talked quite a bit, you know, publicly regarding the TIF and the need for it in our downtown area. Obviously, everyone recognizes we have, you know, a hidden gem in the downtown that we can maximize much more. We're excited to develop the downtown, to get more growth down there. Again, it's a beautiful and very historic site. I was laughing when it said it needs buildings 35 years. Some of ours are over 135 years. So it is definitely a gem. We look forward to developing it. You know, all the other taxing bodies are on board. And again, just in general, so people understand the TIF, as both Kathy and Bob mentioned, the TIF is there not to move taxes around or to change taxes. All it does is it's an incentive so that right now, if our tax base is, what is it, 7.6 million?
Yes.
We go in and we, you know, put in a new building, you know, either it be condos or apartments or new restaurants or new stores. Those new buildings aren't there right now. Those will generate new property taxes. Those property taxes are incremental over the 7.6 million. That is the incentive, what we do. And what we're able to then do is to take some of those property taxes, that increment that's created must stay in this TIF. So it's an investment back into the TIF, either it be for the streets, structures, utilities, incentivizing developers to put up these structures. That's why we have it. So again, it's not a new tax. We're not taking away tax. It's an incentive to actually create value. And as we've mentioned before, you know, one of our key incentives from a board is to create value, and we're excited to have this TIF and to, you know, to build the downtown and to maximize its potential. So with that being said, any other trustees, anyone else have any other comments? Okay. With that being said, we'll stick to the agenda here. As part of the TIF hearing, introduction, and I don't believe we have any written comments. Is that correct? No written comments on the, so we'll check that off. And then now we're going to open it up for any public comments and or discussion regarding the TIF. Does anyone in the public want to come up? If you do, please come up to the microphone. Please. And again, I think everyone knows the operation here. Just if you want to mention your name and or address, if you feel comfortable with that.
My name is Jeanette DeVaris, and I live at 13490 Jerry Road. And I have a few questions about, I have more than a few questions about the TIF district. It seems to me we already have 3 TIF districts going. There was one that ended in 2014. Okay, and that district, I would like to know whether any of these TIF districts worked in the way in which they were meant to work. In other words, with the increment between the taxes, that increment money, has that ever, is there a pot from those other districts that is also available? So like, okay, 2000, there's a 2006 that's still ongoing, because these things are for 23 years, and whatever they do today is going to affect taxes for the next 23 years. So the 2006, is there any money in the increment pot at this time? In other words, was there any development that brought that assessed valuation up to the point where they could put money into the development pot?
Yeah, well, I can jump in real quick, Jeanette, and we have, you're right, 3 TIFs. There's 2 out at 83 in Maine that are very, very young at this point, so they're not producing a whole lot of increment. The downtown TIF, what I think you're mentioning, downtown canal TIF, which includes the Front Street Lofts property, was implemented in 2006. So yeah, there is increment being developed, being realized out of that TIF. However, the majority of it, if not all, is being used to pay debt service on the TIF. There were 2 separate bonds to construct the public parking deck in the downtown, and those bonds help pay for the parking deck, and the increment's paying for those bonds at this point. We're hopeful to get more development so we have more, more property taxes to realize cash to hopefully do things like, clean up the I&M Canal or continue with infrastructure improvements. So there is increment now within the TIF, but it's being used for debt service, to answer your question.
Okay, and with regard to debt service, what happens when there isn't money in the increment to cover the debt service?
The majority of our bonds are for this one, there is TIF increment to cover the debt. If there wasn't, then there are alternate revenues that back up the debt. But for the parking deck bond, there is enough increment to cover the debt.
So if you've issued municipal bonds, that's what I'm assuming when you talk about bonds, you've issued municipal bonds. And what happens if there isn't enough money to cover that debt service in the increment?
Are you talking about our proposed TIF that we're talking about tonight, or the other 3 TIFs? Because there's not any bond that's going to be proposed for this new TIF.
Yeah. In general, in order to issue debt, you have to show 1.25% coverage on the project. So again, the downtown canal TIF is paying off the debt. But to your point, if it were not able to pay it off, then alternate revenues would have to pay that debt.
Okay, and alternate revenues would be the village, it would come to the village to pay it
Correct.
off, correct?
Sales tax, utility tax, correct. Yeah.
So again, at that point, it would be coming out of the taxpayers' money that comes to the village.
Correct. And typically, Jeanette, in the early years of a TIF, because, unless building starts right away, for instance, if there is a bond issued on a given TIF, it takes a while to build that infrastructure. Like the Gateway TIF right now, the Gateway TIF, that bond and those payments are coming due, but we have to continue to develop those subdivisions there to cover those bond payments.
All right, and now I would like to go to the point of what happens to the monies that are due to the schools from taxes every year. And what happens when you have the base, okay, now we're going to say if the TIF starts today, the taxes for that area or the buildings in that area is held at this level. Okay, so what goes to the schools at this level will go to the schools the same for the next 23
Correct.
years or until the TIF district is, done over. Why would you want to do that to the schools, to the park district, to the libraries? Why would you want to tie up to them, reduce what they're going to be getting in taxes now and all the way up?
Well, I think, Jeanette, I mean, right now, we have the downtown, right? We have empty buildings. We have buildings going the opposite way, right? We have a major building eating up almost an acre and a half that's going down in value. So what we're doing is we're actually, we have this incentive in order to get building down there, to get infrastructure down there. Because in the long run, this is going to be the best thing for the schools, for the park districts. Because if not, these things continue to sit empty, if not decay.
Well, how about some of these TIFs that have already been done? How about the one that expired in 2014? Did it, in the end, did it benefit?
Yes. Yeah.
And, but
Because at the end, the districts are able to levy on the new amount, which is much larger than the base amount. So I think the heart of your question gets to the but-for requirement, and I think we've gone through that today. But for a TIF, there may not be development. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing just to mention is that this is why we sit down with the Joint Review Board, and nearly all of them were at the meeting, and they all support it's an agency member of each agency, and they all supported the TIF because they understand the benefits outweigh the drawbacks of TIF for this particular.
is there anybody here from the school districts?
No, but there was a positive vote at the JRB. The Joint Review Board meeting. So before the TIF process, as part of the TIF process, we get together with the taxing districts and we talk about the TIF. And there's a vote taken at the end of that process, and it was a unanimous recommendation to start the TIF from all the taxing districts that were in attendance.
And how much did that, one that expired in 2014, ballpark figure, how much did it bring up the assessment?
I could get you that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but they were able to levy at the higher amount, but I'll get that for you. Correct, yeah. There's other mechanisms for the schools to, if the TIF produces school-age children, then there's mechanisms for the school to get, to recoup funds out of the TIF as well.
At the end?
No,
No.
they're in the process.
They're in the process.
But that's after, I think you have to have more than 75 residents to do the study even.
No. So no, at any point, the schools have to, prove that there's a school-age child being produced out of the TIF, but they could submit that to the village, and the village will have to, by statute, will have to pay an impact fee essentially back to the school districts.
Jeanette, bottom line is all the other taxing bodies, they get it, that they understand that this is not going to be developed unless you incentivize people to do it. And that's, and that is the incentive of why you have it, and that's, what we want to make sure we do. We want to make the downtown to be the best it can be.
Well, what if it doesn't happen? What if it doesn't happen?
It's not happening now. I mean, we're at the same place we are today. We don't lose anything.
No, but we are losing now, which was your point.
Yeah, we're losing now.
By
If
doing
nothing
nothing,
happens,
we're
we're in the
losing.
same place. We're not issuing bond. We're not issuing debt on it. If nothing happens, it's the same place we are today. All it is it's an incentive to create development. Anything that's created of value is eventually going to go back to those other taxing bodies down the road.
If you can't get people in here without an incentive, okay, to develop the downtown area, and that's basically what we're saying is it's not been developed and it's not moving forward to be developed, to give us the best that we could get. If you can't get private developers interested in developing it, maybe it shouldn't be developed.
Well, I think we want it developed the right way, right? We want excellent buildings. We want quality buildings, quality rental or condos in there. Because if we do not give an incentive like that, if you own that land, potentially you could have a lesser value building going in, and that is not what we want.
I have a few other questions, and that is with the redevelopment program, project area. Is it by lot, or is it every lot that's in that development area that funds are going to be taken from the taxes and put into the increment? Do you want to?
I don't understand your question. Yeah, if you want to handle that, Kathy, thank you.
The redevelopment project area, the redevelopment project area as a whole, as a building is improved or any property is improved, goes into what they call a special tax allocation fund. That fund, a portion of it, may be used to incentivize that redevelopment. A portion of it may be used for fixing streets and streetscapes and improving it. It is mandated by law that it only, as the mayor said, be used in the area. More importantly, on certain capital costs. Can't just use the money on anything. I'd also suggest that, and remind each of us, the law mandates that every year there is an annual report that's filed with the state controller's office. And that tells you all the revenues, it tells you every nickel that was spent by the municipality within the district, what's left, what the obligations are. And that's a good way to answer many of the questions.
But what you're talking about is the increment that we're talking about that's above what the taxes are today and what they're going to be in the future, in the next 23 years.
If there are improvements.
If there are.
Correct. And as the mayor said, you've got nothing to lose. Doing nothing doesn't get you anywhere.
I
And
understand.
if nothing happens, you've not gotten any tax dollars, you've not done anything. If something happens, this village board has an opportunity to improve the downtown.
But what it is you're betting on the come. Okay, you're
We're
betting.
not- what you're-
Well, sure you are, because you're taking taxes away from the schools.
No, you're not. If there is nothing happening, there's no taxes taken away from schools. Moreover, if you understand the levy process, and Bob can support me on this, our levies, school district, this village, are levied by a dollar amount. And so you just have the same amount going to the school districts, it's just divided differently. So if you levy, as a school district, $1 million, you get your $1 million, assuming everyone pays their taxes. The difference is that levy is not against the incremental EAV, but the schools get their money. They are able to operate, and that's one of the reasons, if you understand the levy process, that our joint review board with each of our taxing, and it's not often that I go to these joint review boards and every single taxing district voted yes and recommended to this village board that you go forward. So, and they understand this, because this is their dollars and cents. So that we left that meeting, we're reading the plan being submitted to this village board is a very good plan for this village. You don't have to agree. I'm just telling you what we've got.
I know.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Appreciate it. Anyone else have any other further comments or questions from the public? No, come on up.
Kathy Henderson, 1321 Chestnut Crossing. I am just curious, is there a plan for that area now? Is there, have you entertained a plan? Is there, are you creating the TIF district with a certain plan in mind, specific plan currently?
Yeah, Kathy, I think like what we've shared publicly is, you know, the plan is to develop it either at, like for instance, right now, we're entertaining with Elsie's old, you know, the hardware site. We've had 2 developers come in and pitch high-end luxury condos and high-end luxury apartment buildings. We're actually talking to a third right now, which could be a combination. Again, when we talk about this site is extremely difficult to develop. Ralph, you would know this. We have a storm sewer running right down the middle of the hardware store. Those of you that are familiar with it, you can't build anything over this storm sewer. In order to build it, we have to build around it, so it's a very difficult site. But in addition, you know, outside of that, Kathy, we're looking at developing the entire downtown, giving, you know, making sure we get some of these empty buildings either redone. We have a couple of sites, Budnick's, as you well know, was previously just purchased. Amy's Old Pub is going to be developed, add a third floor and a grocer. We have the pizza place coming in on the corner. You know, we've had the new coffee shop in town. So again, it's just not, you know, one specific. When you say, hey, is there a plan? There's not any master hidden plan. This is everything we've shared. You know, the biggest development would be Elsie's hardware store, which I mentioned. Right now, it's probably going to be, you know, anywhere from a 80 to 100 unit high-end luxury apartment or condo building. But even as of right now, that, you know, we're on step maybe 4 of 100 there. So a lot of things have to happen. We've learned quite a bit as we've talked to multiple developers. We've had a couple developers come in and say, hey, give me all the increment. I can't make this work. You know, and again, we are being very picky on the quality. We want this to be high-end quality. When we want it to fit in with the downtown, we're not going to just put whatever someone wants to put up there. So again, this TIF is important to make that site, you know, as good as it could be.
And that's why I came tonight. I just wanted on the record that I have received several calls at the township about 4-story high-rise condos or apartments there. And personally, I feel that 4 stories might be a little over the top for that area. That is the center of our community. That's the downtown area. That's the area that you look through to see the steeples or at the lofts. We developed that, and you know, people bought their condos there, you know, with that view. And to put something too high, I mean, would be, I think, a shame. I like what we've done here with the Jerry Paul Handick's development there on Telcott with the retail below, and it's not too high, and I don't think it would block the view. I would, you know, just hope down the road when we start looking or talking to developers that we keep that in mind. That, you know, there's such a nice view from the ridge as you're coming into Lamont, and you know, we just don't want something too high there. It just really wouldn't fit in with the downtown area. So anyway, Barbara Bushman had her hip replacement, and she's not here tonight, but I'm sure she'd be saying the same thing as far as the historic downtown district. And keeping that in mind when you are, you know, I know it is a very difficult site with the canal right there. You're going to have to be, there are going to have to be some incentives, and you know, I get that, but you know, at the same time, you know, I hope we can do it right.
Yeah. No, thanks, Kathy. And you know, there's multiple factors when we look at this new development. You know, 1A and 1B is, hey, it's got to fit in. The exterior, everyone here has to be proud of what's going to be built, right? We have to make sure we have parking, right? You know, underground parking, preferable, but we got to make sure we have adequate parking. So that's 1A, 1B. But we also want to make sure that, you know, the amenities that this has inside, that it's high quality, and the other factor is the height of the building. I mean, we recognize that, right? Mm-hmm. And I think everyone that's been around here long enough, you know, the same thing happened with the lofts as well. And you know, we have to balance all those factors to see, you know, what's the best thing we can get in to town that's high quality. But also, you know, from a financial standpoint, it has to work for these developers. And right now, we're 0 for 2. So, you know, we're moving on. So, but thanks, Kathy. Yep, come on up.
And if I could just jump in too, Kathy, just to follow up a little bit while you're getting up to ask your question. Any development that does come through, this is a process to start the TIF to hopefully incentivize developers. Any development's going to come through, it goes through a staff review, goes through a tech review where the other tax districts dig in, and then it will eventually come to a public hearing in front of our historic preservation. So Barb Bushman, if she's well, she'll review it at the historic preservation level. It'll also go to the Planning and Zoning Commission level. So any development will come through a process where there's also a public hearing for residents to voice their input.
The only other thing I wanted to say is that during the time period when this is being developed, and you only have taxes coming from the base, okay, what they were, the school costs will definitely go up. And you and I both know who's going to end up paying for that, because they're going to have to come in, more taxes for the schools to support them. Nothing stays the same, okay? And so the taxpayers in the end are the ones that if you know, you're betting on the come is 23 years away, you know, in between that period, the schools are going to need more than what they're getting from the base. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Jeanette, appreciate it. No, and again, you know, when you make a bet, you have to give something out. We're not giving anything out, so
Okay.
I got it. Okay, all right, moving on. Anyone else? I'm sorry. Okay, one more. Yep,
Then you have to close the hearing.
yep.
Doing nothing is going to reduce the tax base.
Susie Hornick, and I'm the 15 Horse Lane lot. And I have a...
I'm sorry, I can't
Yeah,
hear.
say
you.
your
I'm sorry, Susie Hornick.
Hi, Susie.
Hi. I have a question. Are any of the properties being considered like for eminent domain or a situation like that?
To be taken over by the village? No, nothing that the village doesn't own right now.
Okay, and then also, are there any plans or anything like for the third rail or for more train traffic to support these condos and development?
I wish we could get them. I really do. No, I mean, that's an ongoing issue that we've, that's outside of this discussion. We've been working, you know, with our Congressman Lipinski. It's been an ongoing thing over the years. I think we got an additional, what was it, inbound or outbound in the afternoon. We just brought it up again to the Congressman, and unfortunately, that is owned by CN, Canadian Rail. And unless that was to exchange hands and be bought by someone else, we've learned something new, that would be the only potential of getting new runs. But right now, because it's owned by them, they're going to run their, you know, their rail traffic on that.
We would have this, and we wouldn't even be talking about it, but.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
By the way, Congressman Lipinski did in his last newsletter talk about the program. He's involved in the CREATE program on the Transportation Committee. There's a project running right now that he got approval on down, I think it's at 75th, and I don't remember the north-south street. But by putting in that bridge, it is going to free up some of the queuing of the trains, which may have a ripple effect to help us down the line here through the Heritage Corridor. So he heard us long ago, and while he hasn't taken a lot of grandstanding about it yet, he is working on it. So pay attention to those newsletters that come out, because you gotta put the pieces together, but that's what's happening.
And I just want to agree with Kathy that I wouldn't like to see really tall condos blocking the view down or out of town, so that's all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Hi, Sam Washer, 314 Illinois Street. I just had two really quick questions. First question being, I guess I'm thinking of the redevelopment and addition of various businesses downtown, which I'm excited about. I'm very excited about because I'm walking distance and I'm very excited. Just wondering though, I'm on the southwest corner of Illinois and Stephen. I own a 4-unit building there, and then there's a 5-unit building to the east of me. Just wondering, there is kind of slim parking in front. Is there any thought into making that residential only for either tenants or, again, anyone who lives on Illinois? For the most part, it's pretty easy to park, but with more businesses and traffic hopefully coming through, just wondering kind of what to tell my tenants as far as future possibilities.
It's on the southwest corner, Illinois and Stevens, so that's
Across from Muffins.
Gotcha. And we've recognized, you know, the lack of parking, I guess, on the south side of the downtown area. And when we start talking about parking, we'd love to be able to pick up, and this isn't eminent domain, but this would be picking up property through, Jason, what?
No
Yeah,
cash
no
bid.
cash bids. So it's basically property that's going into foreclosure is going through the tax process. From a village standpoint, we have a couple of targets right now that we're working on that would help out in that area, but we do recognize on the south side it is tough, right? And then on the north side, people don't even know that parking garage exists, right? I mean, I go in there every day, every morning, and there's 240 spots in there, and only 60 are being used. And that's where, you know, and that's where we're working on our signage, right, Ralph, to get better signage for people downtown. That might not, you know, help out your corner, because people don't want to walk more than, I think, in the suburbs, more than 100 yards without.
That's generous.
But no, I mean,
Unless they
we,
go shopping in Orland, then they'll walk
Yeah.
3 blocks.
I mean, we do recognize that, and I think there have been some possible residents or properties that have come in that have, we would be open to transforming some of those if it's the right thing into parking, but we do recognize the parking situation. I know we've had a couple of ideas of maybe making some of these streets one way and get diagonal parking. I think Rick had a great idea on something like that at one time. So these are the options. We recognize that, though.
Okay, good. My second question, I know we talked about the redevelopment downtown, but as far as the current properties, is there a plan in place as far as anything that's going to be mandatory as having to change facades or keeping up? Obviously, you know, I'm not gonna have overgrown weeds in my place, but, you know, anything along the lines of specifics as far as structural changes to the existing buildings?
No, I mean, nothing in the works right now. I mean, you know, there is a DMA, a merchant association, downtown merchant association, that we have a couple of members out there that have joined. And this is all the businesses in the downtown area. And we brought this together. And one of the things, you know, I go to that meeting every month. I say, what do you guys want? What do you guys want us to enforce? What is it? You know, so I look for their direction. You know, this is because they own the businesses downtown. This is, you know, if they want, you know, if they think there's too much garbage out there and they want it cleaned up, we will start to enforce that. But to answer your question, no, there's not anything that we have structurally in the works that we're going to demand everyone to do. You know, yeah, hey, if it's booming, you know, maybe we might up the quality, but no, I mean, as of right now, no. Okay, thank you.
It works through Channel 6.
We've been stuck in the mud since '08, and I think this is wonderful to get us out, get us going, to energize what's going on. There's so many people that are backing the downtown program that you just don't probably even hear about. The talk around town is they would love to have a great, thriving downtown. And there are so many around us. You know, I was in Naperville last week looking at it and thinking we could be there. You know, some of the same people that worked on Naperville, the Riverwalk, worked on Lamont. You know, the canal was a big part of their incentive, and unfortunately it hasn't been able to get off the dime on it because of money, because of EPA. But I think you're on the right track, putting together this TIF, TOD, and getting this thing rocking. We need people down there. We need density. In order to get the development, it just doesn't, like you said, it doesn't work without the density. And there are times for density, and downtown needs the density, and that would be another trigger. We need parking, obviously. I know you're working on it. You know, you've been trying to do everything you can, and there's some good spots that hopefully the TIF will be able to motivate the purchase of, so that we can go. And yeah, it's going to energize. And I'm just here to say, I didn't intend to get up and say anything. I don't think I really need to, but go for it.
All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else? All right, so that ends the public.
I'll make a motion to
Comment?
close the public hearing.
All right, motion by trustee Snagowski, seconded by trustee Maher. The public hearing is closed. All right. Next up, we have a couple of things the mayor's mentioned. Bear with me here. A couple exciting things going on. We have the Lamont Legends Cruise Nights will continue on Wednesdays through the end of August from 6 to 9 p.m. in the downtown Lamont. Also, the Lamont Quarryman Vintage Baseball team will take on the Blue Island Brewmasters and the Sunset Hill Farm Colonels on August 18th at Mount Assisi Field, located at 13900 Main Street, and that begins at noon. The Historical Society and Museum is still in need of monetary donations for the many projects that need to be completed to keep the Old Stone Church in operating condition. The Historical Society is dependent on memberships and donations to maintain the church, which is truly a significant piece of our village's history. I think we all agree with that. As part of our Illinois Bicentennial celebration, the Historical Society is holding tours of the historic downtown and of the canal and quarry. The next tour, the Downtown Lamont Walking Tour, is on Saturday, August 25th at 10 a.m. and RSVP is required, and I am told there's just a nominal fee required with that. Also, the Historical Society will hold a Night of Magic and Mystery masquerade ball on Saturday, September 22nd, starting at 6 p.m. That's at the Slovenian Center. The cost is $75 per person, and all proceeds will go to benefit the Old Stone Church. Please visit their website. It's at lamonthistorical.org for more information on this, as well as the tours and of course, how to donate. Also, the Illinois Bicentennial Passport Program. I have an example of the passport right here. Again, this is our 200th birthday here in Illinois. I'm sure you guys all know that. It's coming up later this year. It's taking place now through November 30th with 56 places you can visit. So this is the passport. You obtain a stamp on your passport book. There are chances to win prizes as well. You can obtain a free passport book and get your book stamped in Lamont. And that you can get done at the Smoky Row Antique Shop in our historic downtown, as well as Old Stone Church and St. James Church. Now, Trustee Stapleton, I've been told, obviously, you are in the Heritage Corridor ad, so I've been told you have to make sure you get one of these. So you got to get on that. All right. Please visit Illinois200.com for more information on our 200th birthday, as well as this passport program. We have a new survey-type platform in the village called Polco, P-O-L-C-O. We are utilizing to obtain feedback from our residents and people outside of Lamont as well. You will be receiving a postcard in the mail this month with information on how to sign up. You simply go to their website at polco.us/Lamont. From there, you can respond to questionnaires that we create and post. Of course, your feedback is very important regarding any current ideas, initiatives, events, and issues facing Lamont. So again, Linda Molitor has done a great job, as well as with her staff, to set this up. Again, we're looking for communication. We want to hear from you. Please check this out. This is a great way for us to hear what you want and for us to act on it as well, and or to respond to various questions and answers. We heard a lot, regarding the newsletter, that Q&A. People want more of that. That's what we want to be able to provide. So please check out that website. Lastly, this regards our electric aggregation. Our current contract is with Dynegy Energy, and it will expire in October, and a new electric supplier has been chosen. Residents will be receiving a letter in the mail announcing that Constellation New Energy has been selected as our preferred supplier for our electric aggregation program. Our contract with Constellation will be for 36 months. That will cover the period October 2018 through 2021. With the meter reading cycles, it will be at a fixed rate at 7.517 cents per kilowatt hour. If you are currently participating in our electric aggregation program with the village, which many of you are, you want to continue this program with Constellation, you do not need to do anything. If you do not want to be included in the program, just simply follow the instructions on the letter. If you are currently not enrolled in our electric aggregation program and you want to be, first contact your current electric supplier to find out if you will be imposed any fee or penalty for canceling the contract. Obviously, you want to do that before you make any change. But again, you will receive the letter. Either way, which it will have our logo on it. There will be no one that will call you or go to your house to discuss this with you. So if you're getting those, that is not part of this Constellation agreement. Again, the letter you receive has Constellation's contact information on this. With that all being said, George, is there anything else that we need to communicate regarding that contract?
No, I think we met with the Will County Governmental League aggregation group and put this out as a group to receive better bids, and there was about 18 other communities in Will County who were part of the program, and 3-year program gets us to some stability for a 3-year contract, and the price per kilowatt hour is below the ComEd rate. I think that's important. You know, the ComEd rate changes, you know, from you know, I think 3 or 4 times a year. If at any point during the 3-year contract, the ComEd rate comes significantly below our rate, you can leave the program with no strings attached, no penalty. So really, it's really a situation where there are no losers. At any time, you can leave the program. You can come back in. This just allows for a consistent rate for 3 years. It will not go up from there. If in fact the ComEd rate does drop significantly below, we will even communicate to the residents, hey, go out and change your provider. So again, this is the supply portion of the bill only, so you will continue to get bills from ComEd. That won't change. If you have service issues, you will still call ComEd. So that has not changed. It's just the supply portion on your bill will change to Constellation. But if you have any questions, please give a call to Village Hall.
Again, obviously, we do this in order to, you know, combine more villages, more communities to get a lower rate. So obviously, we're doing this to drive the rate down. With that being said, we now have, we've heard quite a bit from the audience regarding the TIF. We do have now part of our report, the audience participation. Does anyone else have any other comments or would like to speak? If you do, please come up to the podium. Okay. I think we're all set there. So with that being said, let's move on to the clerk's report.
Thank you.
Charlene.
The first ordinance, if passed this evening, would be O-31-18, and this is amending Title 10 of the Lamont, Illinois Municipal Code, Chapter 10, the Illinois Vehicle Code.
Okay, need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Blatzer, seconded by trustee Maher. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police department is recommending that we take the intersections on Roberta Street at Walter Street and East Doolin Street and make them 4-way stop intersections. Right now, there's stop signs at the north and southbound Doolin, north and southbound Walter. It's primarily because of visibility issues for cars traveling on Roberta Street. As you're coming west on Roberta from State Street, the Walter Street is a fairly dramatically offset intersection. Cars that are southbound on Walter Street can't see the westbound traffic. And then as you proceed west from there toward Doolin Street, there's a large curve just prior to entering Doolin Street, and cars at southbound Doolin Street can't see really either east or westbound traffic on Roberta, and the traffic that's on Roberta Street traveling west can't see pedestrians or vehicles entering the intersection, so almost around that curve. We think it's a fairly benign issue to the commuters, and that it would be good public safety to add additional stop signs to those areas.
And Chief, obviously everyone's a creature of habit. They're on autopilot, some of those residents there. Will we have Ralph, will we have the blinking lights on the stop sign? All right. Gonna light it up. All right.
There's a grace period once signs are put up before they start being enforced.
Okay,
We'll
great.
put Tom
Thanks,
Mallard out
Chief.
there for a week or two.
Slow it down. Thanks, Chief, appreciate it. Any other questions, comments?
I got a comment. Just Doolin going north is also one that you're coming down a hill. It just is totally different there than the standard intersections.
Okay, with that, roll call, please.
McClafferty?
Yes.
Snagowski?
Yes.
Stapleton?
Yes.
Glatzer?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Maher?
Okay, motion approved.
The next ordinance, if passed this evening, would be O-32-18, and this is amending ordinance O-9-18, and that was an ordinance granting the final planned unit development, the PUD plan approval, and preliminary plat approval for an industrial development located at 13011 Grant Road in Lamont, Illinois.
Okay, need a motion.
So move. Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Stapleton, seconded by trustee McClafferty. Jason?
This PUD amendment amends the January approval for Donegal. Initially, they believed they'd be able to reuse one of the structures out there for a two-story office building. As construction began or demolition began, they realized it wasn't in as good a shape as they thought, so they resubmitted the architectural design for their office. This was approved at the June Planning and Zoning Commission hearing.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Any other questions or?
Yes.
Rick?
I want to know how long does it go on for?
They have the plans in to our plan reviewers, TPI. They were working pretty diligently on it, and they realized that they couldn't reuse the foundation.
I understand. I don't have a problem with anything you've said to date, except get it done.
I agree with
And we have provisions within the ordinances that have time limits on the permits.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, I'm tired of hearing about this thing. Do it. And if he's not gonna do it, then we're gonna blow this up. I will make sure, I'd be personally involved in blowing this permit up. I am tired of hearing about this property. It looks like crap.
All right, any other comments, questions? I second that, Rick.
Whatever.
All
I
right.
think Jason, and we'll sit down, and Jason, you can do it on your own too. Sit down with the representatives from Donegal and pass that along, I'm sure.
It looks worse now before he knocked the end of the building off. I mean, it just looks terrible.
I'll enjoy sharing that.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Roll call, please.
McClafferty?
Yes.
Snagowski?
Yes.
Stapleton?
Yes.
Glatzer?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Maher?
Okay, motion approved.
The next item, if passed this evening, would be O-33-18, and this is amending Title 17 of the Lamont Municipal Code, the Lamont Unified Development Ordinance of 2008. This is a UDO amendment.
Okay, need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee McClafferty, seconded by trustee Kwasniewski. Jason?
Thank you. Part of this UDO amendment corrects some housekeeping references and whatnot, but there are two significant changes here. One, the first is the introduction of the new zoning district. That's the R5A district. We're asked to look at regular deviations and variations that were approved through PUD over the last 2 years. So we provided the median of that in this zoning district. So 10,000 square foot lots, 75 foot wide with 10 foot setbacks for R5A. That would allow both detached and attached single family housing. All the other requirements stay the same, architectural standards, open space for PUDs, and et cetera. It only creates new lot sizes for developers. The other significant change is architectural standards for duplexes. We worked with the Planning and Zoning Commission to create anti-monotony standards that were appropriate for duplexes.
Great, thanks, Jason. I'd like to thank the Planning and Zoning Committee for all their hard work, as well as staff, Jason, you and your staff. So again, appreciate it. I know, you know, that's not always an easy job. So again, appreciate everyone's input. With that being said, any other questions? Debbie?
Just a comment. I know that planning and zoning and the staff worked really hard on this, and I appreciate that. And one of the benefits that we hope will happen as a result of this will be less people coming in and asking for variations and deviations from the standard. So I think we had said before, it was probably Rick, and angry Rick, saying, we don't want them coming in now and saying, okay, now we want 8,000. 10,000 is the standard, and anything less than that is going to be a real exception. At least that's what I would assume from our discussion here. So I think this will make life much easier for planning and zoning and for the staff, so you're not constantly trying to, jumble it. So I'm glad we were able to get that done.
Any other comments? Again, thanks, Jason, appreciate it. With that, roll call, please.
Okay, McClafferty?
Yes.
Stagowski?
Yes.
Stapleton?
Yes.
Blatzer?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Maher?
Yes. Okay, motion approved.
The next item would be a resolution, if passed this evening. It would be R-42-18. And this is providing for the submission to the electors of the Village of Lamont, Cook, Will, and DuPage counties, a referendum on whether the village should become a home rule municipality.
Okay, need a motion, please.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Kwasniewski, seconded by trustee Stapleton. George?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This agenda item involves the consideration of a resolution which would place a question of home rule authority on the ballot for the November general election. There's going to be a lot of information sent out from the village in the coming weeks and months. Pros, cons of home rule, what is home rule, impacts of potential home rule. We'll have it on our website. Today, however, in order to get the item on the ballot, the county clerks have to have enough time. So this is the last board meeting. We'll have an opportunity to approve this resolution for them to get it on the ballot. So today, more information coming, but today I'll just give a general overview, turn it over to the mayor if he wants to, or anybody else want to mention any other comments. Home rule, as I think we started to talk about the last 6 months or so, has to do with the village's ability to govern itself. As a home rule unit of government, villages and cities in the state of Illinois have the ability to implement policies they deem necessary to govern their town unless the state says otherwise. This is contrary to non-home rule, like the village's governing status currently now, where the village can only do certain things if the state specifically allows for it in state statute. So essentially, it's going by which playbook you go by, either the state's playbook and the rules and policies they govern for you, or are you able to have discretion on your own from a village board standpoint? That's the difference between home rule and non-home rule in a nutshell. You probably heard a lot from the village in the past about village can't do that, village can't regulate that typical use, the village can't evaluate that revenue stream because we're non-home rule. That's kind of what we're talking about here. There's two ways a community can become home rule. One is automatically at a population of 25,000. The village is, even at the census coming up, is probably going to be closer to 17, maybe 18,000. So we won't hit the 25,000 mark. But another way to become home rule is that the village can present a question to the public at an election where the residents can vote on home rules. So that is the item that's being voted on tonight, is to present the question. The board has met publicly over the last several months to talk about the potential home rule referendum, whether or not to bring it to the public. There are many reasons a community may try to ask the residents for home rule status. I think that a lot of it comes from, it was a tough budget year. Once again, we had to defer capital equipment, capital projects. Home rule does give the ability to be a little bit flexible on revenue streams, and you try to find revenue streams that don't necessarily burden existing residents. Maybe it's a revenue stream where you hit non-residents to help pay for infrastructure, equipment, things of that nature. To have access to revenue streams as a non-home rule community, we do not have currently. There are many other reasons for a community may want to go home rule. I outlined them in my memo. Potential, bond rating increase, ability to issue longer-term debt so you can bring costs down. There's economic development abilities in economic development when you're home rule. So many different areas that you can use home rule to your advantage. Again, that will come in the coming months, that we'll send something out. Pros, we'll also talk about the cons of home rule. But today is really just an opportunity to present the question to the board for you guys to put on the ballot. From the staff standpoint, we will not take a position on the question itself. However, I think presenting the question to the public is an appropriate one. At what level of government should what level of government should, the authority rest? Should it be at the state level or the local level? I think that's an appropriate question to ask the community, and so staff recommends putting the question on the ballot, but I'll kind of turn it over to you guys for other comment.
Yeah, so we've talked about this quite a bit, and I think if you look at Lamont, if you're 25,000, you are home rule. We're a town of 17,000, but we have some big city issues that we have to deal with. We have quite a bit of commerce. We have quite a bit of traffic going through our towns, either it be rail, water, and truck traffic, right? Right now, truck traffic comes on our roads potentially. We do not benefit whatsoever from any truck traffic from a revenue source, yet we have to maintain those roads. So when people say, hey, can you please regulate that truck traffic? Right now, as a non-home rule, we really do not have many options. So that's a very small, minor point, but basically to George's point, it gives the governorship or governmentship back to the local level. Otherwise, we're relying on the state to dictate what we can and cannot do. And we've had quite a few other issues. Again, we'll share these more publicly down the road of things that we could do in order to, better govern our town. And again, what we'd be looking for is to be able to take advantage of some of these things that are happening in our town by outsiders or businesses that we can then be able to, capitalize on. So with that being said, stay tuned. We want to do this in an election where there's going to be a lot of people out. So in order to do it, the biggest election we're going to have in some time is going to be this November. We're voting on the governor here in Illinois. So we want to hear from everyone. We don't want to do this in a off cycle. We want to hear from everyone. We're going to get communication out there so that everyone understands what we're doing and why we're doing it and the pluses or minuses. So again, stay tuned. And again, we're just following what we've heard from many of the residents. Talked quite a bit about the home rule in the last newsletter. Some of the things we cannot do because we're not home rule. So to address some of those issues, again, we would have to be home rule in order to address those. So with that being said, any of the trustees have any comments? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, George. And with that, can we have a roll call, please?
Okay. McClafferty?
Yes.
Snagowski?
Yes.
Stapleton?
Yes.
Platzer?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Maher?
Okay, great. Motion approved. Next.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. Next up is our attorney report. Anything?
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. George?
No report today, Mr. Mayor, just an executive session.
All right. I know we're running long tonight. So nothing on the trustees side, right? Staff reports. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. First off, I wanted to thank the residents who brought their kids out last Wednesday for Absent Kids Day. It was a new event for us, and we were pleased at how it turned out. We made 300 shirts, and they were gone in the first hour of the event. I think we brought the most people ever down to a car show in town. So I have nothing to prove that, but but it was a great event, and we'll do it again next year. And I was glad we had 42 outside agencies brought police cars down to the event this year, which was our largest police event as well. So it was a great event. Real quick, I wanted to give residents just a heads up. The Citgo Fire Department is going to be conducting a full-scale safe response exercise tomorrow through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4, so it's all day at their East Tank Farm along 127th Street. They're going to be using multiple fire apparatus with flowing water and foam because it's a full-scale exercise. So we know we'll be getting calls on it when folks see that, but be heads up that it's just an exercise.
And again, where's that at?
It's going to be at their East Tank Farm. It's the farthest east along 127th Street, just off of Smith Road.
Okay. So Smith Road and 127th, a lot of action is going to be going on.
Southwest of Briarcliff.
Yeah. You'll see the fire apparatus working probably along with Romeoville and Plainfield, or Wilmot Fire folks. Last item, the state of Illinois, we're participating in Illinois Rail Safety Week, September 23rd to the 29th. Our folks will be out there the entire week doing rail crossing enforcement at the grade crossings and at the commuter station. Last year, we issued a lot of tickets. There's still a lot of folks that are crossing the rails toward the station that are not in the approved crosswalks, and they continue to do that. We'll be out there. There were 1,000 trespasser incidents in the United States last year, and 520 fatalities of pedestrians, and another, I think, 2,100 crossing collisions involving motor vehicles. So it's that week. It's promote rail safety throughout the year, but we'll be there with Metro and some of the other folks.
Okay, great. And Chief, again, great job with the cops and kids. I know we had a change in venue. Some of it was financial driven. You know, the former event was very, you know, it was expensive. And what we want to be able to do is to continue the tradition and or get more people out and do it in a more cost-effective manner. That's not what totally drove it, but it was a double win. So again, appreciate everyone's participation. And the weather held up, so it was a pretty cool night. So again, thank you. And then with that exercise, Rolling Meadows, Briarcliff, those subdivisions, I'm sure are going to be calling. So if we can contact some of those HOAs or at least get the word out so that they don't think, you know, Rome's burning down over there. Unfinished or new business, anything, anyone?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge, I see Don Quaid out here. He had WGN out last week and gave a good donation to the Historical Society between himself and the Mosquito Squad. So I think it was, we should frequent his business. And
yeah. No, appreciate it, Don. We had WGN, they did their morning show, and they visited 4 businesses, right? Visited and Pollyanna and yeah, and Gels, yeah. So again, it's good. Check it out. It's on YouTube. You know, WGN, the morning show. So it was a great PR, and thanks, Don, for setting that up. Appreciate it. With that being said, nothing else, new, old business. All right, so we're going to have an executive session tonight. Need a motion to go into executive session to discuss under Chapter 5 ILCS of the Open Meetings Act. Andrew, help me out here. 120-2C5. Personnel 2C1. Okay, Personnel 2C1, collective bargainings. 122C2 and litigation 2C11, correct? Okay, with that being said, need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Mahers, seconded by Trustee Stapleton, was it over there? Here, we'll give it to
McClafferty.
McClafferty. All right. All right, roll call, please.
McClafferty?
Yes.
Snagowski?
Yes.
Stapleton?
Yes.
Glatzer?
Yes.
Kwasniewski?
Yes.
Maher?
All right, motion approved. So we will now go into closed meetings and we will close the doors to the public.